destruction of your jobs as journalists. If Julian Assange goes down, that's just the beginning. That is muzzling the First Amendment, and then everybody else is next. So we have to stand. Although it may seem like a lost cause to some people, and as Jimmy Stewart said, and Mr. Smith goes to Washington, those are the most important causes to go after, are lost causes. But it isn't. You see this tie I have today? I got this in 2006 in Buenos Aires by the woman by the name of Tati Almeida and three of her friends. Enrique Baroni, Johanna Malocchio, and one other. And they were part of a group called the Wikileaks of the Bible. Their kids were murdered, kidnapped and murdered with the support of the U.S. in 1975. And it was an ironclad dictatorship. But they stood up. They went in front of the Pink House, the Government House, every Thursday, as Roger and I became to talk about last night, every Thursday, every week, until those outside were gone in 1981, and they ushered in a democracy. Those women, it was a lost cause, but they did it. So, I'm not going to say, we have a lot of people who have a lot to say. I'm going to begin by introducing this. We are going to win this, because everybody has something at stake here. You have your jobs at stake. We who are radio hosts, or podcasters, or entertainers, we have our livelihoods and our freedom at stake. You better take this seriously as we stand in front of this U.S. colony consulate called the UK. It's a colony of the U.S. That's all it is. We used to be one of their colonies. Now they're one of our colonies. And they do exactly what we tell them to. Let me introduce a civil rights attorney, longtime civil rights attorney, who's been involved in so many struggles over the past 4 decades. She is the great Margaret Consulate. Give her a round of applause.
Because he's not. And we've learned that liars are everywhere. They are necessary for this government to continue. For us to go to war, we need lies. We need lies to survive in this country. That's what it's about. But someone who tells the truth has to be locked up. And that's the dangerous situation that we're in today. And we have to be clear that we have to free all of the truth tellers, because without them, we're in tremendous danger. We don't have enough media. We don't have press. We don't have investigative reporters who are old enough to tell the truth. And what we do is put truth tellers in jail. We're in a terrible situation. And that's why it's so important that we support Julian, because we're not only supporting Julian, we're supporting the last remnant of truth in this country. And that's what we have to do. And we have to take to the streets to do it, because the liars are in control. And I ask you all to publish this, and to be aware of the problems that are happening today, aware of the fact that we have fascism developing, and if we don't stand up against it, there won't be any. So pay attention to this, and be firm, and be on the streets to demonstrate. Thank you.
Consular. Now we're going to bring up someone who's been fighting for the last 11 years since his brother was arrested at the Brits.
Take him to the microphone.
Okay, I will, Roger. I haven't been in show business in a couple of years. But he's been there. He's been traveling around the world. This is his brother, Gabriel Shipton. Give him a big round of applause.
On Friday, the UK High Court approved the extradition of my brother Julian Assange. Julian has 2 weeks to lodge an appeal to the Supreme Court. But what this decision showed, I think, is that we can no longer rely on the UK to stop this extradition, and that the prosecution of Julian needs to be dropped here in the US. The UK has no First Amendment. They have no press freedom protection like we do here in the US. So we can't rely on them to stop this prosecution. I just want a massive thank you, obviously, to everybody who's come out today. It's great to see everyone here. The case against Julian, the prosecution against Julian, which is the first of its kind under the Espionage Act. He's the first publisher and journalist to be charged under the 1917 Espionage Act. Until now, the Espionage Act has been for whistleblowers. It's only been whistleblowers being prosecuted. So this is it is an attack, a direct attack on press freedom, a direct attack on the First Amendment by the US DOJ, and it needs to be stopped. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
We're going to move it right along. The host of the co-host of Useful Idiots, Matt Taibbi, and the host of the Katie Halper Show. Say hello to Katie Halper.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'm kind of surprised that Biden doesn't have more empathy for Julian Assange, who's of course been locked up for so long. Because as we all know, Biden himself was arrested and in prison for protesting, I believe it was visiting Nelson Mandela. That's his story, right? Of course, that's a lie, and that's one of the many reasons that Biden does not have empathy for Julian Assange, because Julian Assange is actually a truth teller. Not only does he tell the truth, but he exposes the truth that governments and corporations around the world are so invested in hiding. And on a more serious note, from what I remember, Joseph Biden was the vice president of Barack Obama. He was not the vice president for Donald Trump. And from what I remember, he ran against Donald Trump. He didn't try to support Donald Trump. And yet, why is it, I have a question, why is it that Barack Obama decided to not indict Julian Assange? And he decided to not indict Julian Assange in large part because he knew that if he went after Julian Assange, he'd have to go after all the outlets that published what Julian Assange published. And he didn't want to be seen prosecuting and persecuting the New York Times. So my question is for Joe Biden, why don't you actually do the right thing here? Why don't you do the thing that your president did? We all know we have a problem with Obama, obviously, but I'm making a rhetorical argument. And that is that why doesn't Biden cease being Trumpian? Why doesn't Biden do the right thing, come down on the right side of history, so he doesn't have blood on his hands? And I implore all of the media and all of the press to do that too. And I want to end by reading a quote. This is not from me, I'm quoting someone else. And this is what this person said. Okay, someone said, whatever he's guilty of, the motives were similar. The difference being I was a source, he was a publisher. He was like the New York Times and the others, more courageous than they are, obviously, but I identify with him totally. The notion that he's guilty of something that I, the good guy, wasn't is just false. That was Daniel Ellsberg, okay? And that's it. Whatever Assange is guilty of, I am guilty of. And Daniel Ellsberg is rightly venerated as a hero of the First Amendment and for a free press. So let's do what Daniel Ellsberg is telling us to do. Let's do what everyone who's on the right side of history is telling us to do. Let's do what justice demands that we do. Free Assange, Biden do the right thing, and drop the extradition, drop the charges. Stop being Trump's puppet.
We're going to move it right along. The author of several books here, folks. One on Marat, one of my favorites. We had him on the show on July 14th. Another lost cause, but the French won that revolution. We'll talk about next. He's got a good offer on it. Would you please welcome Cliff Connor?
I want to thank the organizers of this rally thought maybe as a historian, I could offer some historical perspective to help clarify what the unconscionable persecution of Julian Assange by the American Empire is all about. Speaking of the American Empire, it reminds me of where we're standing today as well. We're at a symbolic site that represents another empire, the British Empire, an empire of the past that exists only as memories of hundreds of years of robbery and oppression of most of the peoples of the earth. But that empire long ago crumbled into dust, and now what remains stands in humble servitude to its successor, the American Empire. I can think of no reason to be here today at the British Consulate other than that we have come here on several previous occasions to demand of the British government that it release Julian Assange from the notorious dungeons of the Belmarsh prison and to demand that it refuse the American Empire's call to extradite Julian Assange to the United States. Now that the British government has demonstrated yet once again that it has surrendered its sovereignty to American power, we have no further business here. Our demands must now be directed not to the puppet, but to the puppeteer. We demand that the Biden administration drop all of its unjust and Orwellian charges against Julian Assange. I think I have an answer to the questions somebody said recently. Speaking of history, by the way, you may be getting tired of hearing the quotation from Mark Twain that says history doesn't repeat itself, but it does sometimes rhyme. Well, I'll tell you what rhymes with the Biden administration. Weimar Republic. Like the Weimar Republic, the Biden administration came into existence proclaiming itself to be a great bastion of democracy. The Weimar Republic was supposed to be the ultimate defense against the rising tide of fascism in Germany between World Wars I and II. And likewise, the Biden administration is supposed to be our great hope to block the advance of Trumpian authoritarianism in the United States today. How's that working out? Anybody wanted to make a movie about Biden's resistance to Trumpism, they call it Silence of the Liberals, and it cast Steve Bannon in the role of Hannibal Lecter. Silence of the Liberals features Biden and his Attorney General Merrick Garland, who have the legal authority to immediately end the uprising and persecution of Julian Assange. Particularly reprehensible is the silence of the New York Times and the silence of MSNBC on the Assange case. Many astute civil libertarians have warned that if Assange is convicted of the charges against him, it will set a legal precedent that will allow the political authorities to block the New York Times and all other media in the United States from reporting anything that the authorities want to suppress. That has been called the New York Times problem, but the New York Times is simply ignoring it. Whistling through the graveyard, as the saying goes. As I said, Biden and Merrick Garland have the legal authority to drop the charges against Julian Assange. They have shown no inclination to do so. And a couple of speakers have already wondered why not. I believe it's because the real decision makers in this case are the Pentagon and the so-called intelligence agencies, the CIA, FBI, and NSA, who hate Assange in a purple fashion for exposing their war crimes. They want to make an example of him to strike fear in the hearts of anyone who might try to follow in Assange's footsteps. Julian Assange's only hope for survival is if we can mobilize enough loud protest and political pressure to force Biden and Merrick Garland to back off. I'll end now by bidding farewell to the British Consulate. So long, British Consulate, the sun has long set, long since set on your empire. All signs today point to the red setting of the sun on the American Empire as well. Eventually, it's true to history, but it's still capable of inflicting terrible damage on humanity as it exits the stage. Julian Assange is a prime target and victim. We must do all we can to defend him, demand that all of the charges against him be dropped, to be released from prison immediately. Free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Brandon will be here shortly, and we're going to keep it going. Thank you, Cliff. It's a great book on Murat. You got to read it. About Murat. Whistleblower way back then, a great journalist who was hunted down by Lafayette. You got to wait. We're going to bring up right now, he really doesn't need an introduction. You know, the greatest guy in the world. He really is. He's been on this forever. The one and only Roger Waters.
Look at that. Good morning, whoever that was. You happy? I'm happy. I feel like Henry V at Agincourt, a little bit. There are those abed in England who will regret they were not here and all that bullshit. Except it's not bullshit, because there will be people abed who are not here, who will regret that they were not here this morning on 2nd Avenue. I was very struck driving up here in my car earlier today by the thousands and thousands and thousands of aimless, or maybe they're not aimless, I'm not sure what their aims are, but people on their iPhones going like that, walking down the streets or looking in shop windows or standing around or anyway continuing with their lives, completely unaware that there's a couple of hundred of us out here taking to the streets because thanks to people like Randy, we have recognised that there is something appalling going on in this country and also in the UK where I'm from. We have all of us together connived to incarcerate one of the great men of the 20th century, a great journalist, a great mind, a great intellect, but also an entirely innocent man, innocent of any crime. We had a thing on Randy Credico's program there, Live on the Fly, and Niels Meltzer was on it. Niels is in Switzerland today, so he can't be with us. But he made a speech on that TV program last night, and I asked Kelly, who was doing all the IT stuff for Randy last night, to send me a copy of it, and I'm going to read it out now because Niels isn't here, but he can say a lot of this stuff a lot better than I ever could. I have other things to say when I finish. I don't mean to keep you here all afternoon, but so here it is. Hang on. Morning, madam. Sorry. Randy? Yes. Did you make that work? Thank you so much, darling. Well done. It doesn't fit. No, don't hold it up. Don't think hold it, please. I'm not quite. I'm sorry about this.
It's all good.
Don't touch the screen, they say. Right. So, thank you. A round of applause for my assistant.
Yes, thank you.
She'll be doing a tough answers. Thank you very much. Right. So this is what Niels had to say on the telly last night. Christ, it's gone down. He didn't say that, I just said that, but it's all right, I can still read it. Niels said this, he said, receiving the new... Oh, fuck it, no, it's gone off again.
Hold it, the fucking thing up.
Receiving the news of this decision of the appeals court on the 10th of December 2021. The 10th of December is the International Day of Human Rights. The 10th of December 1948 was the day of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris. Actually, I don't need the rest of this. I'm not going to do this. Because it's stupid. But put that up. Anyway, Niels went on and on and on, and mainly he was explaining it to us that the whole judicial legal process that they are trying to sell us, that Merrick Garland and Joe Biden and Blinken and all the rest of them, and the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Daily Mail and the Guardian newspaper in England and all the rest of the mainstream media, including MSNBC and Fox News and all the rest of these lying MMs, are trying to sell us this, that this has something to do with the law. It doesn't. As Niels Meltzer, who, as I'm sure you all know, is the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, who got involved in this case at the request of his employers, the United Nations of the peoples of this planet. Okay? And actually, Niels constantly makes the point that when he was asked to look into the alleged torture, of Julian Assange, he was reluctant to do so because the propaganda that they spread about Julian and about the two ladies in Sweden had already permeated so deeply into our consciousnesses that even Niels Meltzer wrinkled his nose. Luckily, Niels Meltzer speaks many languages, including Swedish, and he looked into it and discovered that that narrative was a pack of lies, completely made up as part of the United States and UK governments to demonize Assange and to put a stop to his work. Has anybody got a bottle of water?
Anybody got a bottle of water that's not open? Bottle of water.
I do.
Just a sip. Anyway, so Neil, I've got my stomach up.
This thing was tested earlier this morning.
If I die, I die. Fuck it. We have to get the word out. And I need to wet my whistle. Where was I? Niels Meltzer. Yeah, the nonsense about Sweden, all of that stuff. So again and again, oh, by the way, Niels Meltzer's book is coming out on February the 8th in English. So let's all buy it and read it and pass it on to our friends, because I haven't read it yet, but I'm certain it will be good. The point that Niels makes constantly, again and again and again, and so does Craig Murray, and so does John Pilger, and so does Randy Credico, and so does Susan Sarandon, and so does Katie Harbour, and so and on, is that this whole sordid, crappy affair is completely illegal. Completely illegal. The hounding of Julian Assange is against the law. All of it, from start to finish. And yet, they are pretending under the connivance of the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Daily Mail and the Guardian and blah, 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 blah. They are persuading all of these people wandering up and down 2nd Avenue this morning, punching their iPhones, that everything is fine, that they're swatting a grubby fly of the window pane of life, and that everything will be all right. Well, it won't be all right. And the reason that it won't be all right is because December the 10th, 1948 was the most important thing that's happened in my lifetime, with the Declaration of Universal Human Rights in Paris, which happened on that day. And they, all of them, are trying to negate it by removing the law from the grasp of the people. And tucking it neatly into their waistcoat pocket. Yes, Mr. Ambassador, I'm talking about you, wherever you are here in the British Consulate, and saying the law is not for you, it is only for us, and we will lie and cheat about it with the connivance of the mainstream media until we absolutely get our way. Sorry, there's a kerfuffle in the crowd. It's possibly a French counterattack, Once more into the breach, dear friends, or fill this wall up with our English dead. Sorry, that was distracting. All right, I'll leave that for the moment because I've been shouting a bit. I'm finished.
Shout, shout.
Yeah. Funnily enough, in 1982, I wrote a song. It's called The Gunner's Dream. And it's sort of my version of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I'll just tell you the last verse for any of you who can't remember it. It goes, a place to stay, enough to eat, somewhere old heroes shuffle safely down the street, where you can speak out loud about your doubts and fears, and what's more, no one ever disappears. You never hear their standard issue kicking in your door. You can relax on both sides of the tracks, and maniacs don't blow holes in bandsmen by remote control. And everyone has recourse to the law, and no one kills the children anymore. And
All right. Roger didn't need an introduction, and neither does she. Let's bring her right up. Susan Sarandon. Give it up.
Okay. Well, I can see that you're speaking to the choir here, that you already know the fact that I honestly can't really follow Roger very successfully here, because that was amazing, and I'm glad that I caught that, and I thank all of you for being here. I was listening to Katie's podcast and was really laying out what has happened and why it's happened and why it's so important, and I just wish that everyone could listen to this, because there's so much misinformation, and you know, this is, as you know, so important, not just because of Assange, but because of what it means for us, for our kids, for the future of journalism. And I would question, the New York Times, the Washington Post had no problem publishing and commercializing and commodifying what Julian made available. And we don't hear anything from them now. And you would think that they would feel threatened for the future of what journalists are allowed to question. All of these trumped up charges and all of the hoopla, clearly is a very vindictive time right now, because it's not based on anything that's been proven. And I would just hope maybe I don't know who to even put pressure on, because clearly this is our government and our representatives who are so quiet, don't seem to mind. And so I don't know who we pressure in terms of our government, but maybe, again, we can at least talk to people who have these misconceptions and explain to them that no matter what you think of Julian Assange, this has to do with their freedom for information, that has to do with journalism, that has to do with journalism that just isn't about entertainment, and has to do with having an informed public. Because once this goes, we're really dead. And we're well on the way to that, as you all know, because that's why you're here. So I would just hope that we could start conversations during the holidays, whatever, even before that, when people have misconceptions, and explain to them what's at risk here, and maybe also try to put some pressure on the New York Times and the Washington Post and who else published it, because the Guardian, that consider themselves, you know, the bastions of free speech, they didn't have any problem publishing this. So I would hope that we could somehow hold them responsible now to defend, if not Julian Assange, then the principle that truth should not be illegal. And we should have the right to have the truth if this is a democracy. So thanks everybody for coming, and that's sing anything, or I don't have a Christmas song. But I thank you all for coming, and this is a very scary day for me, a very scary time for everyone, and you can't let it go by unnoticed. And thank you all for coming.
Just working. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. We're going to have a few more speakers. I just want to say that this democracy is at stake. This republic is at stake. Everybody has got to mobilize and fight, just like they did in 1936 in Spain. When Abraham Lincoln Brigade went over there, they may have lost, but they went there. The republic was at stake. Franco, he won because England didn't do anything, France didn't do anything, U.S. didn't do anything except for volunteers. We have to be the new Abraham Lincoln Brigade and not let this republic fall because of this persecution of Julian Assange. We've got to be in the trenches, as Grandpa Al Lewis used to say. We need to get the asses of the masses on the street. We cannot be complacent. We've all got something at risk here. Seriously. So pressure. Forget about DC right now. They're doing nothing. They're standing by. Ari Melber and that crew, they're more interested in going to that bar in Dirty Rock than they are protecting democracy.
200 days, they're gonna arrest me
Get this guy
now.
out of here, please. He follows me around everywhere. If I had more fans like him, I'd be a success.
Oh my God, no, they don't care about my suffering. Look, they're not gonna build it, they don't care. They don't care about me. My suffering.
It's all about you. It's all about you. You spent 2 years in prison. Why did I even give any time? So, why do I even pay attention? Forget it. Keep your cameras away from that guy. All right, it happens wherever I go, that gentleman shows up. It interrupts. And I'm sorry about that, folks. And he's diverting attention from a guy who has been in jail, in a dungeon, for the last 2 years. And he's done nothing wrong except for inform you what our government is doing with the CIA and Vault 7. Aren't you happy that Julian Assange informed us of what the CIA has been doing for the last 500 years? They've been spying on us. They don't want us to know about it. But Julian, the great journalist, exposed them. He exposed the crimes in Iraq, the crimes in Afghanistan, the crimes in Honduras by Hillary Clinton, the crimes in Tripoli by Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, and all the other crimes that the DOD and the Department of State has committed and corporations. He exposed all of it. We're informed. We have a right to know about it. We have a right. They don't want us to know about it. We paid our goddamn salaries. And we don't know about it? Thank you, Julian Assange. We all thank you for exposing, informing this body politic of what the fuck is going on in this country.
Thank you, Julian! Thank you, Julian! Thank you, Julian!
So let's get out there and continue to fight. It's, as Cornel West said, this is a fight worth going to jail for, even dying for.
That's right.
Okay? That's the kind of fight we are, and as Susan said, in a very bad moment in this country and in the world consequently.
Yes.
They want to go to war with Russia, they want to go to war with China, they want to take Iran's oil, they want to take Venezuela's oil, and all the other goods around the world. We don't want that to happen. And we need the information. We need Julian Assange out there and others to be emboldened like he has been. Let's not make him a martyr. Let's get him out before that happens. It's up to us. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Patricia Dole, who's been involved in this for a long time.
Get angry!
My knees are like dying.
Introduce our next speaker. Her name is Margaret Hennessy. Margaret, I want you all to know she's a member of the New York Catholic Order, and she herself has just been released from prison for doing a civil action against nuclear weapons. She's here to read a special message from Julian Assange's very good friend in Australia, Karen O'Reilly, who is also a prisoner in the U.S. pursuing another civil action here. Karen is a very good friend of Julian and Gabriel and the whole family, and she's going to read this very special message. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Hi, I'm Martha, actually, but that's okay. So, New York, the heart of empire, is telling us to eat, sleep, and get down. Well, we need to keep exposing these war crimes because these people are not untouchable. This from Kieran.
And they're not powerful either.
Greetings and solidarity from Queensland, Australia. Julian Assange was born in Townsville, North Queensland 50 years ago, ironically during a state of emergency declared by the Queensland state government to facilitate the racially selected South African rugby tour. So today, Julian is presently imprisoned 12,000 miles from home in maximum security Belmarsh, London. I was outside the London Magistrates Court in support of Julian when he was first taken into British custody on December 7, 2010, 11 long years ago. Julian has spent all of his 40s jailed, electronically tagged under house arrest or in the sensory deprivation at the Guardian Embassy in London, surrounded by British special branch and sordid spokes. I often visited Julian in the embassy over those 7 years and witnessed his decline in physical and mental health. In the final year of the siege, I witnessed the embassy transform from a place of refuge into a trap as his living conditions declined in an escalating atmosphere of hostility. In November 2018, I was asked to conduct a 24/7 vigil outside the embassy in what turned out to be the last 5 months of the siege. As many of you know from your own experiences of incarceration, the most important thing for a prisoner is an out date. Julian has never had an out date. It has always been and remains indefinite detention as he is hunted by the U.S. and British governments and sold out by our own Australian government. Like Julian, I was a prisoner of the United States serving 13 months as a federal prisoner for my role in the New Year's Day 1991 disabling of a B-52 bomber at Griffith Air Force Base in upstate New York.
Woo! Yes!
In truth, Julian remains a prisoner of the anti-war opposition to the UK-US war on Iraq that started over 30 years ago. I recall being with Bill Barrett and the others at the Pentagon on Hiroshima Day 1990, when Margaret Thatcher and George Bush Sr. gathered there and allowed the genocidal punishment on Iraq and the mobilization for war. The war on Iraq, of course, escalated in 2003 with the invasion and occupation. It has since escalated and expanded across the Middle East. All the war-making state asks of most of us in the privileged West is to avert our gaze, to look the other way. In starting Wikileaks in 2006, Julian Assange refused to look the other way, and in 2010, thanks to the heroic whistleblowing of Chelsea Manning, put the realities of the wars on Iraq and Afghanistan front and center. For such heroism, both the military resistor Manning and citizen journalist Assange were targeted for slander, torture, and long years of incarceration. We now know that the CIA were entertaining options of kidnapping and killing Julian. The British High Court last week ruled that Julian Assange should be extradited to a country that was entertaining options to kidnap and kill him. Dostoevsky said, "You can judge the quality of a society by the quality of its prisoners." I believe you can judge an anti-war movement by the solidarity it expresses with its prisoners. Thank you for coming today, everyone, and expressing your solidarity with Julian and outrage at the British Consulate. 40 years, I have lived with many refugees, understandably fleeing the murderous brutality on the Empire's fringes. Wonderful people from El Salvador, Chile, East Timor, Syria, Iraq. The two people who I have been first to run into the headlights of Empire were Phil Berrigan and Julian Assange. Julian today is someone like us who is suffering very much like them, those who Empire regards as expendable. Stay staunch, keep the faith, free Julian Assange.
Free Julian!
Our next speaker is a member of Socialist Action. He's also involved with the Assange Defense Committee, both nationally and locally. Marty Goodman.
I was told we have 2 minutes, and I see that's not the case, so it's a tactical error on someone's part. All right. Last Friday, I watched the BBC coverage of Julian's sentencing. A person surely of Indian descent asked Rebecca Vincent of Reporters Without Borders, an excellent person, incredulously why it was that she did not accept the U.S. promise that Assange would not be jailed in America's worst prisons. I would call them gulags. But, quote, she said, America is a democratic country, the BBC reporter blathered. This from a reporter whose nation suffered from British colonialism, racism, and murder. In New Delhi, I personally visited a site where peaceful independence protesters were mowed down by Britain, a so-called democracy like the United States. BBC, we should believe Biden's promises to Julian from the country that plotted to kill him. Welcome to today's know-nothing journalism. Consider Biden's Joseph Goebbels-style promise not to continue Trump's racist deportations. It was a bold-faced lie. Haitians, black refugees, thousands of them are undergoing mass deportations a la Trump's new guidelines back to Haiti's hell house led by a U.S. puppet and a Haitian kleptocracy. Thank you, Julian Assange, for exposing the link between U.S. imperialism, the Clintons, and Haiti.
Thank you, Marty.
All right. Thank you. Where'd my page go? All right. In the wrong order. There we go. The UK is indeed torturing Assange, but yes, U.S. quote-unquote democracy tortured political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal for 40 years. And I was in Philly Saturday handing out Assange stuff. It's a wonderful demonstration. And this killed me. The day Assange was sentenced, Biden, the puppeteer, was babbling about democracy with Venezuelan CIA stooge Juan Guaido. Today, up is down, down is up. Welcome to 21st century capitalism. Welcome to Biden's English court.
It's been like that for decades.
Assange is completely innocent. Move heaven and earth to educate, organize, and mobilize. Free Julian Assange and all political prisoners.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Julian.
Before I bring back a few people, just
say a couple of
Thank
kind
you,
words.
Julian.
I want to let everybody know that there's a table over here where people can find and sign letters that will be sent to the appropriate parties. And also to make sure that we're all aware of the fact that this isn't the only time for us to come out and hit the streets, and this isn't the only time at the UK consulate. We got a lot of people within our own government. We have people in the so-called media who's abandoned not only Julian's interests but their own, and a lot of groups that just couldn't find it within themselves to be here today for whatever reason. So we have to be aware, be out in the streets early and often, because it really is up to us. And now I'd like to bring back Randy Pertico. Thank you, Chuck.
All right, thank you, Chuck, and everybody else involved in the groups here supporting Assange. I know you'll continue to accelerate the activity. We have to multiply. I mean, we are in the beginning, just like the abolition movement was in the 1840s. When only a few people showed up. By 1850, it really grew. So it really got big, and this has to be the same. You've got to follow that model. Just keep moving. More people will be involved. Expose the lies. We need people to get involved across the country. I've said this. I mean, it's to be tiring. They say the same thing over and over again. So let me bring Roger up and Susan up to say some closing remarks together. Some?
Quick.
Who hasn't written Merrick Garland?
I haven't written that song.
Pass things out and write to Merrick Garland asking him to drop the charges. Who hasn't written to the British consulate? This is the address.
I haven't written to the
Pass things around. Who
Jack?
hasn't written to
Jack?
Julian Assange?
Gary?
Who needs the instructions to write to Julian? Please pass these around.
Write to Julian! Write to Julian!
You should really be writing to freaking Patel.
Yes, to Patel. Right to Patel. She can overturn it.
It's very hard to find her email now because the Crown has consolidated their power, and it's all the magistrates are under one website, www.uk.gov. And then you've got to find these people, and there is no. I used to write to Patel, and you can't find her email. Over at the table,
She can overturn it.
addresses for the Washington D.C. Embassy and the Boston Embassy. The British Embassy in Washington is 3100 Massachusetts.
Thank you, Priscilla. We'll get it at the table. Thank you.
All this information.
Thank you. Yes, thank
You
you.
write one letter, write one of these letters of these many letters you can be writing.
Thank you.
All the information is at the table at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And get that information at the table if Gary hasn't already. All right, let's bring up, and then the granny's going to come up afterwards to do a song, I believe. But let's get Roger and Susan up to say some closing remarks.
Yeah.
You want to hear the song? All right.
Yeah, let's hear the
If the
song.
granny's up right now. It's the show.
We'll find out.
All right.
You'll tell me.
You're on. Okay. Have a round of applause.
Well, I'm excited by your reaction. I'm excited by your reaction.
Don't give in without a fight.
A lot of psychopaths smoking. They're still up there. We're just back off and he's getting
Where are you, humanity? We protest now.
and sick. U.S. don't extradite.
Charges
Do what's right. Freedom now we all must fight. Freedom, make it quick.
Good writing.
Party words, Roger.
Great job with that person there. Wow.
Maybe worse.
Also, just decided to stand aside and say something. What do I want to say? I have this to say. We can't wait 10 years.
Right.
Andy.
Right.
Julian will not last 10 years.
The truth.
This has to happen really fast.
Yes, sir.
So the table is there. Those letters are really important. However, it occurred to me that maybe this is a job for tech. You know, so if we're going to reach enough people, I'm not saying we shouldn't sign letters and send them to Merrick Garland, but the idea that Merrick Garland is going to read a letter from me and not just throw it in the bin is laughable, frankly. But it's still, the gesture is extremely important. But somehow we have to get this word out. So somehow the fact that this is illegal, that they're killing this great man, somehow we have to get it to go viral now, today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week, but not in 10 years' time. This has to happen as fast as any of us can think of an idea of how it might happen. Today is the beginning, and we must make sure that we keep plugging away at it, day in, day out from here on. That's all I have to say, but again, I didn't organise this, but thank you for the people who did organise it, and also thank you to all of you for coming down here.
Thank you
this
for
morning.
being here.
Okay, that's all I have.
Hi, George.
Yo, how come only celebs speak? What about the rest? I like, no, Marty's a real one. Marty's a real one. I take it back. Marty is a real one. The real one doesn't speak out in public.
Hold on. Let's Steve and Donziger out, so we got to do the same for Julian Assange.
You don't have a whistle, consecutive days.
A whistle that says I'm a whistleblower for justice. People in planet, please get one. And if you have one, let's do this. Okay, and let's clear the sidewalk. Thank you very much.
You need the streets of hate. You got your big goofy out. Yeah, I know. 1:30. Stay alive, stay alive. I ain't nothing yet. Go ahead. Yo, I talked to some of things. Some people get talked about it. But meanwhile, I'm talking to every time in the nation. We find something called these podcasts for 22. And I was telling people, I'm terrible. It doesn't matter what I was talking about. It doesn't matter.
Stop. Guys, what they're told.
These straps are very nice. Very
Whatever, they can say whatever. What you can't do is let me step to one side. Step to one side. Guys, please step to one side.
You guys can see it. It's a whole lot of events I did for every single candidate. With all you fighting for
I just want to bring out, the bad guys get what they want. Nobody's going to go to journal rights ever again. Those people are being offered trusted and being put in jail. Look what happened to Malia. What's about to happen to you? You cannot be a journalist. They're ruining it for everybody.
Biden likes to, attach himself to this Department of Justice staff. There's nothing they can do to charge and not hold accountable to New York Times and others. That's the part. Pre-Trump, the administration Biden was part of it's definitely Biden administration. It's more like the Trump administration. I think everyone's used to go away. It's Trump. This is continuing Trump attack on press freedom. The Biden administration. The Democrats and the progressives, they're standing by watching this happen. I know that their principles are different. These are all results of Chelsea Man's leaks. So I know the delegates stand up for their principles. And I think it's going to be related, really, Australian citizens. I haven't heard anything from Australia aside from a few Parliament members in Australia. They don't seem to be speaking out. Well, yesterday, the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, Barnaby Joyce, is actually in Australia. He made a statement saying that such should not question. So he was signalling that the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia believes that this
jackets with the lining out. This is how obnoxious. Telling my war stories to the vets. Say how they tell us back. They talk over the press. I'm not going through places. Ain't no real niggas left. Ain't no fun. If you make it out your 20s, let's get back and change your situation.
You've been here, I got love for you.
That's the third?
Oh my God.
There was one like a week before the comedy stand-up event. You were there, right?
Yeah, I was there.
I remember you. And you, Sunny,
I just
right?
I was shaved.
Yes. Well, you probably had your mask on. So
Thanks. That was his last question.
The thing is,
Thank you so much.
yeah, it's just so.
Yes, that's all I wanted to say.
It's literally that I barely get a raise. It's literally
Thank you.
Zool already has
All right, that's the end of the event here. We're gonna cut the stream now. Outside of the British Consulate General in New York City, New York, here in the United States.